All right, let's call a meeting to order, the Budget and Finance Committee meeting for May 5th, Cinco de Mayo, 2016, at 11:55 a.m. I guess, Mr. Counsel,
I got some in the trunk.
do you want me to ask if anybody has any conflicts of interest, any voting conflicts of interest? Anybody on the board? Seeing none, okay, we'll move on forward. Anybody from the public that dares to make any comments, wants to make any comments? No one from the public? No, seeing none, okay, public comments is closed. Moving on to action items. Approval of summary minutes, Joint Budget and Finance and Operations Committee. Moved by Mr. Martinez, seconded by Mr. Brown. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. It's passed unanimously. Okay. Approval of Treasurer's Report. So, as you know, we've have an extensive meeting prior to this one. Marie, we're going to defer the Treasurer's Report because it's for the next meeting.
We reported March's results at last month's board meeting. It's May 5th, so we will report April's results at the board meeting.
Okay. Moving on to endorsement of fiscal year 2017 annual budget and reserves and funding requirement, the budget workshop that just concluded. I guess this is a motion that we would have to endorse to the full board.
I will move the endorsement of the physical budget with a caveat, specifically in my issue relating to the allocation of funds for the media to be divided, with $250,000 being placed in placement and the remaining $500,000 to be placed in reserve. That would be the only adjustment I would make to the budget that we were presented during the workshop. Should anyone have any other suggestions, obviously I'd be willing to listen to any friendly amendments.
Could that be in a form of amendment, that we need an amendment to modify that, or just a recommendation and staff presents that recommendation?
Mr. Treasurer, when we submitted this package, there was some feedback from yourself and some other board members. So I'd like to read the changes that occurred at the workshop and prior to the...
Perfect. All right, that way.
The $59.8 million of operating expenses did not change. There was a reallocation of some of those expenses. As Mr. Martinez indicated, that the public communications media placement was shifted to $250, and the remaining $500 went into media replacement contingency. There was also an adjustment to the GEC budget. It was originally in this package at $1.4 million. Upon the request of a board member, we decreased it by $100,000 and increased IT support by $100,000. So that was the second change that's not in this package. And the last change was that the executive director had a $1 million contingency reserve for the overall budget. That was split to $750 to a general contingency and $250 to an ITS initiative contingency. So again, the overall operating expenses of $59.8 million did not change, but there were several changes at the workshop as well as prior to the workshop that occurred.
And based with those changes, I continue to make the motion to move to accept the budget as amended.
Motion by Mr. Martinez, seconded by Mr. Brown. Any comments, questions? Okay. All in favor of approving the recommendation as submitted?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Okay, it passed unanimously.
We will update the documents from the board perspective. They will make those corrections.
Item D, MDX procurement contract number RFP 16-04 financial auditing service endorsement of the board, approval for technical evaluation committee recommendation to select number one ranked proposal. Is that Helen?
Yes, sir.
Okay, Helen, welcome. Thank you for being here this morning.
You're welcome. Thank you very much for having me. As you mentioned, the requested action is the endorsement for board approval of the recommendation from the Technical Evaluation Committee to select and award the contract to the number one ranked proposer, Moore Stevens Lovelace. MDX released a request for proposals soliciting proposals from CPA firms to provide financial auditing services. The RFP required that the proposer submit both a technical proposal as well as the price proposal for the annual audit fee. The technical proposal was assigned 65 points, and the price proposal was assigned 35 points. The RFP also required that in order for the price proposal to be open, the proposers must have scored a minimum of 52 points for the technical proposal, which equates to 80% of the maximum technical score pursuant to our procurement policy. We received 3 proposals from BCA Watson Rice, Keith McCullough and Company, and Moore Stevens Loveless. All proposals contain minor irregularities that were cured pursuant to our solicitation documents and the procurement policy, and consequently, all proposals were deemed responsive and will move forward for evaluation. The Tech Committee met on April 26, and the proposals submitted by Keith McCullough and Company did not meet the minimum technical score for the price proposal to be open. So only 2 price proposals were open for BCA Watson and Moore Stevens Loveless, and pursuant to the tabulation of the scores, Moore Stevens Loveless was ranked number 1. The contract is for 3 fiscal year audits, with the option to renew it for an additional 2 fiscal year audits. And the contract amount would be for $210,000 for the initial 3-year term. Mr. Walters was our board oversight, so if he has any comments on the process.
Walters, any observations, comments?
Well, overall, I was very impressed with how staff handled this. It appeared to me that every person on the selection committee had studied all the proposals in depth. The one thing that bothered me a little bit, and this was after the meeting, thinking about it, the RFP stated for pre-qualification conditions, you had to have experience with local government, special districts, or tolling authorities. And in listening to the discussion during the selection process, I believe that the one firm that just missed having their envelope open by 0.8 of a point, they were penalized because they'd never done a toll authority. I'm not saying, maybe penalized is the wrong word. Didn't score as high as they probably should have. And while I'm glad that there were 3 submissions, because it's always good to have a competitive process, I'm thinking maybe it would have been fairer to say up front, if you don't have toll experience, don't bother submitting. And that's just my, that's just me.
Mr. Brown?
In regards to the selection process, sometimes when you add requirements that tend to limit the pool of available applicants, has a tendency to chill the effect of the competitive process. And having sat on many review committees and selection committees at the county, I would caution us to look a little broader and a little deeper at what kind of effect that those kind of requirements have, because what you'll end up doing is small firms will never get the opportunity to participate, because if you put that one criteria in there, that they'll never meet the qualification. And the question becomes, whether the auditing services that are being done can be done by someone who may not have tolling experience, but may have every other kind of required experience or suggested experience that you're looking for. But it'll give those small firms, whether black, Hispanic, white, or female, the opportunity to participate. And I think that we want to be careful in looking at that, because one thing I will do, I'm going to be very vigilant on those kinds of qualifications, because they do have a chilling effect on who will participate and who won't participate, and won't give those small firms or minority firms the opportunity to really get involved.
Understood. And those things are taken into account when we do put together pre-qualifications requirements. But just for clarification purposes, this particular, what Mr. Walters was referring to, was not a pre-qualification requirement. It was an evaluation factor.
Apple, orange. End result is still the same. The end result is still the same, whether it's a pre-qualification requirement or a selective criteria element. It still has the same effect, whether they pre-qualify, they don't meet the pre-qualification, or they get through the pre-qualification process and then they're knocked out or scored lower because they don't have this tolling experience.
Yes.
And
that's just my personal point of view.
No, I understand. And just to kind of clarify, when we put the scope together, I want to make sure there's no misunderstanding that toll experience was specific. It was special district, transportation, or tolling experience. I think it was very broad that if anybody could qualify or had experience, that we would evaluate those different types of experiences.
Okay.
Mr. Walters?
Well, I think my point was that these people missed having their envelope open by 0.8 of a point. And who knows, we might have gotten a better price. Clearly, when you looked at the qualifications, all three of these companies could do the work. There was no question about it, and I just thought it was kind of a shame that we didn't get to see what the third group was offering.
But ultimately, do you feel that we selected the best possible firm? It was a good process?
I thought it was, a very good process, and I thought the quality of submissions really impressed me.
All right. With that said, I guess we motion to
Move. Second.
Okay. Moved in second. All in favor of signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Okay. Motion's adopted. Endorsement, and congratulations to the top-ranked candidate. All right. Now to discussion on Bond Series 2016A. Is that Marie and Randy show?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
We just wanted to bring the committee to have a brief discussion on Series 2016A. Last year, we did approve the refunding for 2006 remaining outstanding bonds, roughly about $130 million, which was to be Series 2015A. We were monitoring that transaction. The governing board gave us certain benchmarks before pulling the trigger, and last year we have been monitoring the information. Randy Topol from First Southwest will present some of the financial results. Our intent is to come back to Budget and Finance in June with updated documents for Series 2016 and hold a public hearing at the June board meeting.
Okay. Welcome, Randy.
Randy Topol with First Southwest, the division at Hilltop Securities. We started this process over a year ago with a target of identifying a set of bonds that met certain criteria, but it wasn't an urgent process. During that time, we've had a couple opportunities that we may have gone in and gotten just to our target. But unfortunately, or fortunately for us, we didn't hit those times because we had a multi-phase approach. One of the objectives is to keep as much flexibility going forward for this authority. Going from an advanced refunding to a current refunding allows the authority to go back in and refund the bonds one more time for additional savings if it occurs on a tax-exempt basis. So even though we came close to the targets, we kept our powder dry, and in the process, the savings ballooned substantially, almost threefold from the time we initiated this process. We're currently sitting at present value savings of approximately $21.8 million. When we started this process, we were looking at 7.7, and it didn't quite reach the threshold we wanted. We wanted about $9 million on the proposed structure, because the proposed structure allows us to pay off the debt sooner, but in a form and fashion that allows us to create additional capacity when the next capital improvement program is going to be implemented. It creates a nice downward sloping debt curve.
And Randy, that's in 25, 26, approximately?
In 25 to 26, you'll be able to go in with a very substantial capital program and keep your debt parameters where you can issue level debt service without having to do exotic wrap or back-end loaded debt.
I said that specifically for our board members, that it's not money that we'll have today, but something we can obviously consider in the future.
Okay.
Anything else for Randy? Anything from you, Marie? Okay.
Board members, we've started the process of preparing all the documents. We're updating our traffic and revenue. We'll be bringing this item back over the next month or so to get approval from the board.
Again, this is something that I've been asking and inquiring and working closely with Marie and Randy to some degree to find out when is the time. And, the fluctuations of the market and everything played into this, and I think we really are better off by happenstance or by design, that we really are in a good position to increase our savings. So I thought that was fortuitous for us. No questions. I guess the next thing is the announcements, and that is the Operations Committee meeting on the 11th of May at 10 a.m. here in this boardroom. And after that, on 5/31, at 4 o'clock, the generally scheduled board meeting. So Any good public comments, good jokes, anything for the good of the order?
Move
Mr.
to
Chairman?
adjourn. Yes, move to
That's a
adjourn.
great suggestion. Move to adjourn. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Thank you all for your time.